Hello, I'm Basil John from Nexstar's Washington Bureau, and these are the latest headlines out of the nation's capital Thursday. In his first remarks since becoming Iran's supreme leader, the new Ayatollah says the country's attacks on its Gulf neighbors will continue, and its power to close the Strait of Hormuz should be used. That's led to continued concerns about gas prices in America. Our Washington correspondent, Maddie Beer-Temple, has the latest reactions from Capitol Hill.
Iran's new supreme leader made his first public statement today. He said that Iran would use the closure of the Strait of Hormuz as leverage and pledged to avenge those killed in the war.
I've seen some of the intelligence, and I think Americans need to be concerned.
Through a message on state television, Iran's new Ayatollah vowed the country would keep fighting and targeting ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Overnight, 6 more ships were hit in the strait, which carries a fifth of the world's oil. The effective closure of the key shipping route has led to higher prices at the pump. To ease some of the impacts, the International Energy Agency pledged to release 400 million barrels of oil. On top of that, the Trump administration confirmed it would tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, releasing 172 million barrels of oil starting next week.
Should have done it sooner.
Democrats in Congress, like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, say the war has been costly and chaotic.
This has gone too far, with too much chaos, too little thought, and it's hurting America.
As questions remain about how much longer it could last, President Trump told a crowd in Kentucky Wednesday the U.S. has already won.
We've won. Let me tell you, we've won. In the first hour, it was over.
But he also said it wasn't over yet.
We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right?
Kansas Republican Senator Roger Marshall says he hopes it's over sooner than later.
We're making great progress. I think originally the White House said this was a 4 to 6 week battle going on. Hopefully it'll be done in a total of 3 to 4 weeks.
The Pentagon told Congress Wednesday the first week of the war cost just over $11 billion. In Washington, I'm Maddie Beer-Temple.
And joining me in the stream room to go over more details is our senior Washington correspondent, Raquel Martin, to break this down further. Raquel, thank you so much for joining me in the stream room, because there's a lot that's been going on with this.
Yeah, a lot to unpack even right now.
I mean, we just saw from Maddie's story. I mean, this is the latest that's happening in Iran, the threats that have come forward, the message from the Ayatollah now.
Right.
And clearly there is a big concern from lawmakers because they don't know where this is going next.
Right. The big question is now with the new Ayatollah running the show, you could say, what this means for how the U.S. can actually get out of this conflict without further violence. I know yesterday we heard from Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, who literally talked about this even before the Ayatollah put out that new first statement that he knows that he is not someone who's going to back down, and he will use the Strait of Hormuz as leverage. And that is exactly what we're seeing here. Of course, the new Ayatollah, the son of the former Ayatollah, has a lot of vengeance, you could say. His father was killed in U.S. strikes, I believe his mother and his son.
Yes.
So this is someone, when he say he wants to avenge he wants, did he say revenge or to avenge the lives?
Yes, that's
Excuse
right.
me. Loss through those strikes, this is personal. So it'll be interesting in coming days what other strategies we could see from him. But in a situation where the president is facing a lot of pressure to get out of this conflict fast, obviously because of oil prices and whatnot, it'll be interesting to see how this shapes the future of this conflict. This is a new leader and someone who is not going to be waving the white flag at this point.
And I mean, some experts who have talked about this issue already, they've said that technically speaking, with the previous Ayatollah, there wasn't as much of a concern as to what could potentially end up happening. He had been in power in Iran for decades, and he hadn't actually taken action against the United States. Now you have somebody who
Says they're willing to.
Yeah, they have now a motivation after what happened with his family, all the way down to his child. And now that's why we're starting to see, especially on Capitol Hill, it seems a little bit more concern coming forward. Gas prices especially has been a huge talking point. The latest that we saw was that oil prices climbed back above $100 a barrel. So this is already now slowly but surely leading to the threat that came from Iran's foreign minister, where he said you could potentially see $200 a barrel at some point. Well, what does this end up looking like for Americans when it comes to gas prices, essentially?
Well, we know the International, I believe, is Energy Agency is made up of 32 countries, just announced that it's going to tap into its oil reserves, and the president announced also that the U.S. will be doing the same. So it looks like they're trying to find some way to ease the pain. But of course, this is not a long-term fix. This is just something they can do temporary to ensure that things don't spike just overnight. You're going to have crazy gas prices. Again, this is why this conflict really comes down to what the president's strategy is here. Like, how long can you fight Iran? And if the mission is to defeat this regime, which is some of the messaging we saw, especially in the early days of this conflict, how do you accomplish that? And leave with the new Ayatollah still intact. Now, the president has been asked about the new leadership. He said he's not happy with it.
Because he wanted the U.S. to essentially choose their next leader.
Yeah, and what he has informed reporters is that other people within the leadership were also killed in those strikes that targeted the Ayatollah. So it doesn't seem like he has much to work with. And he also said something interesting yesterday while in Ohio, saying, yeah, we killed the leadership, but we're going to have to see, they have a new leadership coming in. We're going to see what happens with them. So the big question is the new Ayatollah now a target, a part of this larger mission? Is that going to be the way to determine if they actually defeated Iran?
Right.
Does this change the goalpost a bit? Democrats and Republicans, I know, have been asking these sort of questions. And the president, of course, still giving out a bit of some mixed messaging, as you saw in Maddie's story about, have we won? Are we still going? So we're going to hit that 2-week mark here soon. Yeah. We'll have to see if the president is able to give a more certain timeline as this prolongs.
Yeah, and that seems to be the biggest question now as to how long is this really going to end up taking place. And the mixed messaging has been a point of concern, at least from many Democrats we've seen so far. Especially concerning as the death toll keeps climbing over in the Middle East. I wanted to pull up the numbers right here, and it says that Iranian and Lebanese health officials are estimating that right now there's a reported 1,300 people have been killed in Iran, nearly 700 in Lebanon, and about a dozen in Israel. 7 U.S. soldiers have died so far, but now we're hearing that there are more injuries that have happened, and among U.S. soldiers, at least more than 100. And those injuries, they're not just, small cuts or even just gashes. They're, limbs being lost, traumatic brain injury. Right. So this is starting to stack up more and more. And if we see that number climb in regards to U.S. soldier deaths, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. Yeah. Obviously, I know you were really busy today. One, I want to give you big kudos because you came in and you were running around.
Coffee right here
exactly, and you deserve that because you were running around, especially because of the news that came out of Michigan. For those of you who don't know, an armed man rammed a vehicle into a Michigan synagogue, and he was shot by security. Right. It's reported he is now dead. And this is still very much a developing situation that's going on. The vehicle even caught fire after crashing into
it was quite the scene.
The temple. So you were on Capitol Hill, and you had some time to actually grab Senator Gary Peters to listen to him. So what came from the interview you did with him?
Well, first off, he is taken aback by this attack. A lot of Washington and the country is, of course, an attack on a synagogue already feels like a targeted attack of anti-Semitism. When I talked to Senator Peters, of course, this is still an active investigation. They're trying to figure out the motive, but he understands that people are jumping to conclusions, assuming that this person could be somehow connected to this larger war happening in the Middle East, maybe someone who has some goals of retribution. But of course, law enforcement have not confirmed anything of that nature, so we're still waiting to hear the facts. But the fact of the matter is, this is homegrown violence, you could say, targeting a religious body. So he's cautioning people to be vigilant at this time. We know faith leaders have all put out statements. The president, ahead of a Women's History Month celebration with the First Lady, shared his regards to the state of Michigan as they deal with this. But, the country's just really on edge right now. This is one act of violence, and there are other threats out there looming. We saw there was a threat that was in California. There has been an attack in Virginia. So the whole country is on edge. The whole world is on edge as this conflict is in uncharted territory. And the senator says that they're going to continue here in Washington to try and get all the information. Of course, Senator Peters was an interesting person to talk to when it came to this, because he used to be the chairman of the Department of Homeland Security, or not Department of Homeland Security, but the Homeland Security Committee, the Senate
I was going to say, I was like, wait, I was like, DHS, really?
No. He used to be the Senate, the lead senator on the Committee of Homeland Security, excuse me. And he did a whole investigation, a deep dive on homegrown violence, domestic terrorism. And so this is something that is close to what he's following. He was saying back when he was on that committee, they were able to pass legislation to help some of these potential targets, like churches, like synagogues, like mosques, for instance, helping these centers that can often, unfortunately, be targets of violence, have the protections that they need. So he was saying in this situation, they had security guards. And I said, do you think that they utilized that federal assistance? He's like, there's a good chance they did. So it's one of the few times where you can see the connective tissue between what happens here in Washington and how it could have real life benefits in a community, because the security guards were able to stop this person before they killed anybody in that building. So that is one, I guess, positive outcome of this situation, but it certainly is a grim one. And Senator Peters was talking about the fact that maybe there needs to be more discussion about how to handle this type of violence in the future.
Yeah, and as this conflict continues, it sadly would not be surprising to see if more of incidents happen like this. The hope is that something like this does not keep happening, but there is always the possibility. And we've both followed the news cycle long enough to know that something like this can definitely spring up again. But we'll have to really stick to it. But Raquel, thank you for, after running around through the Capitol building, coming right back here and talking to me. I really do appreciate it. Yes, you get to enjoy that. You deserve it wholeheartedly. So round of applause for Raquel Martin. Thank you so much for stopping by the stream room. Thank you so much. Well, after that, here is a look at another story. Now, there's always turnover in Congress, but not like this. There is a record number of lawmakers who are heading for the exit ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. The latest announcements of lawmaker retirements mean at least 60 members of Congress have decided not to run for re-election this year. It's the most retirements from both the House and Senate combined this century, and that growing list includes lawmakers who are stepping aside from political life altogether, and those leaving their seats to run for other offices. So our Margaret Chadbourne has more on lawmakers leaving their seats.
There's a steady stream of resignations and retirements on Capitol Hill.
We're losing some real talent in retirements, but I'm happy for them.
More than 65 members of Congress say they are leaving at the end of this term, the highest turnover rate in any election cycle this century. At least 10 members of the Senate and 56 House members have announced they are not running for office in 2026. It comes as Republicans try to hang on to their thin majority in the Senate this November, and Democrats are determined to flip the House.
We know we can win the seats where people are leaving, but some of the wise counsel is leaving the building.
Many stepping down have served in Congress for decades, like longtime Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell, as well as former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Other congressional retirements are more unexpected, like Congresswoman Elise Stefanik and Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, one-time rising stars in their party.
Donald Trump knows that November is starting to look disastrous for him, and Republicans are seeing the same thing.
Their reasons for retirements are mixed. There are both personal and political factors. Some members of Congress are leaving to run for a different office. Others face a tough re-election, and a few expressed frustration over inaction in Congress.
Politics right now is it's at probably its most polarized state that I've seen since I started into elected office back in 2007.
Still, the record number of exits guarantees a new makeup of Congress with fresh faces and ideas next term. Reporting in Washington, Margaret Chadbourne.
Well, a controversial voter ID bill will hit the Senate floor next week, according to Republican leadership. The Save America Act requires Americans to show proof of citizenship when registering to vote and a photo ID at the polls. But opponents say it will make it harder for women, service members, and seniors to vote.
It is a package of common sense policies, the kind of common sense policies that should get an automatic yes vote from literally every member of this body. At the core of the Save America Act is the requirement that individuals provide proof of citizenship to register to vote and then show an ID when they go to the polls. In other words, it would require Americans to demonstrate that they're eligible to vote and that they are who they say they are when they go to do so.
Donald Trump has said it himself. He said if Republicans can pass the SAVE Act, it'll guarantee the midterms. Let me read that again. Donald Trump says if Republicans pass the SAVE Act, it'll guarantee the midterms. This is outrageous. Undermine democracy, prevent people from voting in a democracy, and that's the only way you can win. That's not democracy, Donald Trump. That's autocracy.
I can't guarantee an outcome on this legislation, but I can guarantee that we are going to put Democrats on the record, that they will be forced to defend their outrageous positions on these issues and explain to the American people why common sense and the Democratic Party have parted ways. Mr. President, Republicans are looking forward to this debate, and I look forward to saying much more about the Save America Act in the very near future.
Well, you saw Senator John Thune and Chuck Schumer there. Well, frustrations are boiling over in the Senate as the DHS shutdown continues. And on both Wednesday and Thursday, Democrats tried to pass funding for most of the department, leaving out ICE. Republicans blocked it, and negotiations are still stalled as Democrats try to make changes to how federal immigration authorities operate. So Republican leader Senator John Thune and Democratic leader Chuck Schumer sparred on the Senate floor earlier today. And this seems to be just a theme for how things are turning out in the Senate.
The bottom line is Democrats are ready today. America, watch. We will have members on the floor saying, let's fund TSA with no other preconditions. What will Republicans do? They're going to see Republicans get up and block it. It's that simple. Now, my friend, sometimes, much of the time, my friend, the Republican leader, says, well, you'll only do it if you go along with what we want on ICE and what we want on Border Patrol. Highly unpopular and wrong. So who's standing in the way? America, look at it. We're not putting any preconditions on funding TSA. The Republicans are. And why?
Mr. President,
because
the Democrat leader would yield for a question.
No, in a minute. Why? Because Republicans are in obeisance to Donald Trump's insistence on having these marauding forces of ICE go through our cities. We saw what they did in Minneapolis. We saw what they did in Los Angeles. We saw what they did in other places. Americans don't like it. Trump's numbers have suffered. And so it's simple. Don't attach preconditions. Fund TSA. Fund CISA. You'll have that opportunity in a few hours. And if you get up and block it and say, we'll only do it unless, Americans will know who's to blame. I yield.
Well, I would just say again to the Democrat leader that the Democrats have had multiple opportunities, and we'll have another one today, to provide funding for all of the agencies that he just mentioned to allow us to consider, under the continuing resolution, to allow us to consider how we're going to resolve the DHS issues that the Democrat leader has raised, which are being negotiated, I might add, at the moment between Democrats and Republicans in the White House. So there will be an attempt. The Democrats will have an opportunity to block, as they have now repeatedly. A continuing resolution would fund all the agencies to which you just alluded, and allow us more time to negotiate. So those agencies could be funded if the Democrats
would my colleague yield for a question? Will he support, without any Republican blocking it, a straight motion to just deal with TSA and get it funded while we're trying to work out these negotiations? Will he support that? No ands, ifs, or buts, no preconditions, no keep negotiating on ICE, but just get it done. Will he support that?
I would support a resolution which will be offered to fund not just TSA, but Coast Guard, cybersecurity, CISA, FEMA, other agencies and departments of our government that are essential not only to national security and homeland security, but to making sure that people can move through our airports in this country, that the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, has the ability to respond to disasters. Those are things, Mr. President, to my friend, the Democrat leader, could all be funded today, and then we can continue this discussion that he wants to have, which, again, there has been offers made repeatedly, the most recent of which was about 13 days ago, I think, from the White House, and the Democrats have yet to respond.
Reclaiming my time, I rest my case.
Some tension there on the Senate floor. And when we come back, a look at a new tax bill Democrats are pushing. Well, a group of Democratic senators are floating a new tax plan they say will help average Americans. They say the one big, beautiful bill passed by Republicans last year is the president's rich friends, and they want to do the opposite. The Working Americans Tax Cut Plan would levy new taxes against people making more than $1 million a year and provide tax relief to those who don't. So take a listen.
Far too many of our fellow Americans are working very hard every day for their paychecks, but still having trouble making ends meet, still being squeezed. And we don't just understand that, we have a plan to do something about it. We believe that Americans who are earning just enough to get by, to meet their basic living expenses, should not have to pay a federal income tax, and those that are in that range should be able to keep more of their hard-earned money. In other words, if your paycheck amounts to a living wage, you should be able to live off of it and not have it taxed away. That is the fundamental idea behind the Working Americans Tax Cut Plan.
The system is working, but it's working for the wealthiest Americans. And it's working for those powerful people who wrote the rules in their favor. In 2024, just 300 billionaires and their family members accounted for 19% of the spending in the 2024 election cycle. 300, almost a fifth. That's not the 1%, those 300 individuals and their families. That's the 1,000th of 1%. And they got what they paid for. They got another big tax cut for themselves, passed by Republicans in Congress and signed into law by Donald Trump. A tax cut that helps them get richer and richer, helps them pass billions of dollars down to their children. And it makes it even harder for the middle class to get ahead. It's just wrong. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Now, to mark the nation's 250th birthday, the United States Mint is rolling out special one-year-only designs for several everyday coins, including the U.S. dime, the U.S. quarter, and the U.S. half dollar. I don't know how many times I've used a half dollar in the past year. The commemorative changes celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States Declaration of Independence and will only appear on coins minted in 2026. Our Washington correspondent, Rashad Hudson, gives us a look at this timeless currency.
The U.S. Mint is rolling out a series of 5 quarters this year, celebrating America's 250th birthday.
They're wonderful because they show, they illustrate, they celebrate America's story.
Including where it all started, the second coin in the series highlights the Revolutionary War, honoring the bravery of those who fought for liberty. The coins will be available in roll sets and 100 coin bags, giving collectors and history buffs a chance to keep a piece of the country's story.
The U.S. Mint is excited to connect America through our coins.
And on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are also getting in on the celebration. One member of Congress wants to create a special commemorative coin of his own.
This is a good thing that we can do at this time to really try to promote just patriotism.
Alabama Republican Congressman Robert Adderholt introduced a bill to create a special $2.50 commemorative coin honoring the nation's anniversary.
A lot of people say it was sort of unusual to have a coin that's of that denomination, but quite honestly, if you look through history, there's been $2.50 coins going way back to the early 1800s.
As for the coins authorized by the U.S. Mint, those designs will be produced for 1 year, making them a unique piece of the country's historic milestone. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
Now, those are some of the top stories from our nation's capital Thursday. For more news like this, be sure to check out the other videos on our app. From Washington, D.C., I'm Basil John.